Don't touch that dial. This is the Lance Wallnau Show. We have some urgent and important updates we have to give you. For instance, it's interesting that Trump and DeSantis were having a meeting for a couple of hours recently, and there's a lot of speculation about the VP decision that's going on there. But what interests me, in addition to that, is what's happened with the college campuses and the fact that the University of Texas did some arrests of some 51 or 58. Interesting terminology they're using, persons as opposed to students. They actually were trying to get students, but when you got persons arrested, does that mean that you have outside organizers mingling with the students? And then who's paying them? Well, we won't know because Texas decided not to prosecute. Why not? And then Bill Maher is going to blow our mind with occasionally dropping the truth bomb that says it all on what's going on with the protest about Hamas. But I want to say something which is really an unusual announcement. Very seldom do I have interviews in these programs where the person affects me to the point that it's a lifestyle change. It does happen. Happened recently when I was talking with the ancient nutrition guys, Dr. Jordan Rubin and Dr. Axe, and they were discussing about waking up in the morning and instead of having a cup of coffee, which could be dehydrating you, but caffeine supposedly wakes you up, your biggest need is if you've had sleep for 6, 7, 8 hours, you're probably dehydrated. So what you want to do is you want to get this electrolytes. You want to get salt into your system. You actually want to get minerals. You want to get your body to absorb the water. And to do that, you have to have the minerals there so that you could drink and be really thirsty and still be thirsty because your body isn't absorbing it. And that's when they discussed this wild multi-collagen advanced hydrate. So it's got 10 types of collagen in it. And the collagen we know is all about your hair and skin and nails and joints and digestion. But what's crazy is the super hydration. Every day when I wake up, I now, instead of coffee, and it's interesting with Annabelle, we now know my routine. I start off with hydration because I find my mind waking up and my body waking up. And instead of needing the caffeine, I'm now just needing the nutrition. And then after this is settled in, half hour later, 45 minutes later, I'll have a cup of coffee, get the best of both worlds. I want you to go to ancientnutritions.com, ancientnutrition.com/Lance, and just put the code word thirsty20. That's save up to 20% by using thirsty20. Or you could just, if you're doing comments there on Facebook and Instagram, just put the word thirsty down, and you could join Lance every morning with the hydration process because I'm actually digging this. Did it as an experiment, and now it's a lifestyle choice. I encourage you to get this, ancientnutrition.com/Lance. Use thirsty20 and experience the difference. Now let's get into the show. It's always a great day when I get to see you guys and get back in touch with you. We have Mercedes Sparks back in the studio today. So we'll be getting started. For those of you in the podcast world, Mercedes just waved. So you know that there was a lot.
Well, you moved so fast, I was like, hey, Lance. And then it was like, and this train's keep on going.
You got to jump in. You got to jump in. For those of you complaining, Mercedes doesn't get to say a lot. If she jump in, she can say whatever she wants to say.
And that's not just my mom.
That's enough, Mercedes. I'd like to do the show now.
Okay, go ahead, Lance.
Now, Trump and DeSantis meet privately in Florida for several hours as VP speculation grows. Personally, I think this is a good choice. For a moment, I was a little bit crazy, and I was thinking, wouldn't Tucker be great? But that was Charlie Kirk put it in my head, and then I pulled it out. The reality is that Trump needs to energize the Republican Party with this disastrous period he's in the courts, constantly, what the left wants to do, and you know it. But they're so dumb out there in TV land that they're drinking it up. The left wants to paint Trump in a courtroom looking guilty so they can smear him as a felon businessman and then try to make Biden look and the Democrats look like they're against these rip-off big business people. It's a hard job to do when a billionaire takes no salary and takes on a job which costs him almost $1 billion of his wealth, and he does it facing prison to save his nation. Nevertheless, it's not going to stop them from doing that. Meantime, so Trump did meet with DeSantis. The main focus I want to give you is he a VP pick? Well, DeSantis would not only energize the donor base, but he's got a lot of those well, I just said it. He would energize the donor base. He'd energize the political base, and Trump would get all those DeSantis donors, which was unlike the Nikki Haley holdouts who, were just anti-Trump and basically anti-MAGA. DeSantis is in policy the hitman for everything Trump is in principle. DeSantis has done a brilliant job in Florida. And to the point that he is a great candidate as VP. I don't think he can run again as governor, right, Mercedes? 2 terms?
Yeah.
So, I mean, you don't want to lose an asset like that. What's he going to do? Go into private practice, practicing law? We want this guy in the political arena, and VP is a perfect spot for him, and Trump is so brilliant. I think that Kristi Noem, she's got some salacious, little chapters there that just make evangelicals freak out when they have to vote for people. She's also, how about that shooting the dog? You guys tracking this? She wrote a memoir, and like 11 years ago, she had to shoot a dog that was untrainable and apparently vicious, and she took it out into a pit and shot it. She's probably making the case that she's a tough woman, has to make the tough choices. Didn't play well in Peoria because all those cat lovers and dog lovers in America consider that an act of barbarism. I mean, you could abort the baby and chop it up in 9 months, but don't you dare shoot the rabid dog. Tells you something about America right now, but she's actually getting taken down big time by disclosing she shot the dog. Or as I ran into it first, she killed a puppy, which isn't what happened, but that's how people are spinning it. What do you think about DeSantis as a running mate for Trump? I want to give you this little bit of news. DeSantis is in the news again here on the Hill because he says Florida will not comply with the new Biden, what is it, Title 10? Title 9. Oh, it's Title 9. Oh, yeah, it's a title. I always get my Roman numerals dyslexically confused. X is 10. 1X is 9. X1 is 11. Got that. All right, so this is Title 9, posted on social platform. We will not comply. Now, what is Title 9? Somebody want to tell me what Title 9 is? It's the regulations that DeSantis has been criticized by LGBTQ advocates in the past for state laws they say harm their community, including the Don't Say Gay law that he was against, which had to do with basically grooming and exposing pornography to your children in elementary school. And they turned it into a Don't Say Gay. They're very good at labeling stuff. But they really, DeSantis should have called it a Don't Mess with Our Kids law. So what is this Title IX? It's transgender males claiming they're women going into the girls' locker room in high school and I guess in junior high and in college and wherever else, and kind of like sharing the shower. And all kinds of ways. They're then competing, of course, in crushing the skulls and breaking the bones of daughters out there because they're competing with physiologic males who self-identify as a female and then maybe change their mind later on. So this lunacy that is coming out of Washington, that is a trend that is unique to America and no other country, by the way, in the world. It's a characteristic of the mind virus has taken us over. Perpetual narcissistic self-indulgence with no limiter because the church doesn't want to be criticized. It only wants to preach positive things. And so there's no moral voice out there. And when people do stand up with a moral voice, they have to have the intellectual capacity of a Jordan Peterson or a Ben Shapiro in order to not get lynched in the public square. Doesn't make it easy when you're dealing with lawlessness. And lawlessness is a weird characteristic of the last days. Is it possible that America can push back on it? Because there's a weird lawlessness going on. We're going to get into our next segment on what's going on with the campuses. And I didn't want to leave with that because you're all talking about it and you all know it. But by the way, Florida is not complying with Title IX. And also, I understand Abbott. Abbott tries to compete. He's, in my opinion, Abbott is like Bud Light for, DeSantis. I shouldn't use Bud Light. They're kind of messed up. It's decaffeinated. Oh, he makes a big show. He says stuff. I think he's competing with Florida. I mean, I'll give you a reason why. Abbott, I like him, and then he disappoints me. Abbott orders Texas to ignore Biden administration's new federal protections of LGBTQ students. The Title IX expanded the definition of sex-based harassment, and Abbott is pushing back on it. But if he has Ken Paxton, our Attorney General, that's the secret sauce, ladies and gentlemen. You have to have an Attorney General like Ken Paxton, who the Bush cartel wanted to take out in Texas politics. You have to be an insider here in Texas to know what's going on there. But what I want to say is that I was particularly, the reason why I'm not celebrating Governor Abbott today is because we have those riots, those campus riots. I'm trying not to go into the subject, but I got to. And in Austin, which is the hotbed for our liberal West Coast, every state has this little, capital of blueness, and even red states they have. And typically it's university towns. Austin is ours. So in Austin, you have all the Marxist professors and the trending LGBT, racist, QRT, DEI, teaching, and proselytizers on the payroll as make-believe professors. And, of course, they stirred up the students to pick up the virus of protest and shut down the campus. Well, true to Texas, the way it ought to be, 57 people were arrested. Why do they use the word people in this report? Because what the left does is they send their Antifa, BLM, paid professional activist organizers in to infuse the student movements with muscle and momentum. So Governor Greg Abbott posted on Twitter, X, these people belong in jail. And so 57 people were arrested. Notice the word people, not students. But guess what? They were arrested in Travis County and dropped, just nothing but performative, nothing but theatrics. Yeah, they arrested them, walked them down, and then let them go. Think about that, young man, what that's going to do to your career. If the university just expels you, that could really this could go on your record. Just think about that. And these kids go home and celebrate getting bold for the next time they can get arrested. And but the reality is they just didn't follow through in Texas. I think DeSantis will follow through. Love to see them test his will and resolve in Florida, but don't think they will. That's the way the left is. If they know they're going to get hurt, they don't go for it. If they know they can bully you, they'll do it. So that's my little message. Isn't that the truth, though, people? You know it's the truth. That's why I encourage you. I'm gonna throw this out there again. You want to join us on the National Courage Tour as we go to the 7 hottest spots in the United States to worship, to witness, to preach, to equip, to activate. Go to thecouragetour.com. Find out where we're going to be in Michigan, coming up like next week, I figure, in 2 weeks, and Wisconsin, and then soon Pennsylvania, and then sometime Carolina, and then Nevada, and blah, blah, blah. You never know where we're going to be. Put courage down there in the Facebook chat thread or the Instagram chat thread. If you haven't done it already, you need to do it now. I'm going to send you a personal link. But Trump and DeSantis did meet for several hours. What else could they meet about? I think it would be just peachy if he would announce. He won't announce it till later. But I'm really concerned about him being jailed up there in New York, because I'm realizing once you start seeing the Hamas manifestation on the campuses, and you see them going after him, they don't have a check valve. The left doesn't have a hold the line. I mean, if they're willing to kill the baby in the 9th month and cut off the genitals of an 11-year-old, and they're willing to run on that, if they're willing to say we hate Jews, people are going to say that's not the Democrat Party. It is. Why do you think Biden hasn't condemned it? Why do you think Harris hasn't condemned it? Why do you think that Chuck Schumer, who's a Jew, hasn't condemned it? You know why? They don't want to offend Soros and the donors. The money is behind the radicals. And so therefore, they got to be very careful how they come out, because if they use the FBI the way it ought to be used, instead of going after shofar-blowing Catholics, they should be going after the organizers and funders, and they should be doing an excavation and a study of every foreigner who is on those campuses, what their ties are, and how did they get here, and did they come through the open border, and how many people that are arrested are actually not even citizens of the United States. And if they are foreign, they should kick them out. I don't care if they're an American citizen. If they're foreign American citizens, they've been naturalized. They came in here with those attitudes. They hate America. They hate Jews. Out! We're going to have to do something like that El Salvador president's doing. and take the nation back the right way, or I'm telling you something. The cancer is getting into the lymph system. We've got to take it out. We're going to come right back and deal with the facts. You don't want to miss it. You know, at some point in my life, people started coming up to me and saying, how much for your illustrations? It's kind of like a Picasso. I just got done doing a teaching here, and it's like all this impressionistic artwork. The reality is, God is giving us downloads now. Those of us that are called prophetically to equip the body. There's an open heaven of insight, expediting revelation and information coming to the church world to take territory. Many of you have been wondering, when am I going to see the breakthrough? Well, we're discussing here the force of favor, divine appointments, prophetic vision. I want to take this teaching and put it into your hands. I want you to have the very most powerful, most recent, updated technology to be able to apply the supernatural to the assignment that God gave you. We're calling this the 7M Mastery Series, but you can get access to it at lancewallnau.com/mastery. lancewallnau.com/mastery. Welcome back to our next segment on today's Lance Wallnau Show. And Mercedes, what do you think about the idea of DeSantis meeting with Trump? And what is your opinion?
I think he's just one of the ones running, so we'll see what happens. I don't know if Florida wants to give him up yet. I think there's also some other names that are being thrown out there. Vivek, right? Vivek's out there. I've seen Tulsi Gabbard also. So all sorts of names being thrown out. We'll see. We'll see who he picks.
All right. Well, I'm just speculating. I got a little happy when I saw that. And a little hope, looking for some hope. And then we have to talk about like what's going on with that trial. I'm going to try to hit on that in this segment here before we're done. But, you know, Bill Maher, while I was out at Regent University Founders Inn this week, I was packing late at night, and I thought, let me just see, you know, in the hotel room, I can't handle, like, what's it called again? The show is Real Time or? Yeah. Okay. So, but he was going to talk about the college campuses, and I wanted to hear it. And sure enough, this segment really, he talked about the Google firing employees who were going too woke to work. And I'm just saying, man, we need this thing. I don't think America has the tolerance. The left does, but I don't think that half of America has the tolerance we had in the 60s for the campus thing. Everybody was confused and who's right, who's wrong. I think it's pretty clear that when you start going like we hate the Jews and kill the whole nation of Israel, you've crossed the threshold of being a Nazi. And they can no longer throw that around on Trump. They are the party of adolescence, narcissism, and violence. But let's just go ahead and listen. Nobody can eviscerate the left as good as someone who is a Democrat picking on their own foibles. Watch this.
I'm not saying there aren't sincere passions about Gaza, especially among people from the region, but social justice warriors, for a lot of them, it seems like it's more about the warrioring than about whatever the cause is. Are you really speaking truth to power, or do you just think you look cool in a keffiyeh? Which is really just the new Che Guevara T-shirt. Another historical figure you never researched and so think is a hero, but was actually a sadistic, racist monster fighting for communism, the worst form of government ever. But these are small matters. Small matters when activism merges with narcissism. Less about the cause and more about me. Look at me. Watch me. And if you like the way I'm fighting injustice, remember to like and subscribe. Maybe from now on, before anyone commits an act of civil disobedience, they should ask themselves a few questions, like, is the most important thing in my life something I hadn't heard of 6 months ago? Do I even know what the I'm talking about? Am I really here for the cause, or is the cause here to bring you me? Why do I care so much about this particular cause? North Korea starves its people. China puts them in concentration camps. Myanmar brutalizes the Rohingya. Boko Haram kidnaps whole villages of women. Nothing? Ukraine? Maybe if these Google employees had the slightest idea what kind of fundamentalist, oppressive they're supporting, Hamas, the Houthis, Hezbollah, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard, they might take it a little easier on the world's greatest monster, Genocide Joe. Genocide, by the way, is when you want to wipe out an entire people. That's the stated goal of Hamas. That's what from the river to the sea means. Hamas would do that to Israel, but can't. Israel could do that to them but doesn't.
Well, there you go. Thank you, Bill, for that refreshing segment. Then, of course, he descends into the abyss of Trump derangement shortly after that, but that can be understood. He is fighting off a virus on the West Coast. But the good news is he had two professors there. I'll get their quotes in there on a future broadcast. Both of them equally clear that this isn't a social justice issue. This is kind of an exercise in the violent overthrow of cultural norms to tear down America. And man, would that we understood that on our side and had a little more clarity on that. But then I saw something that I was afraid was going to go over the heads of people. You know, I love Jordan Peterson. Jordan is just such a refreshing breath of air. I remember praying for him years ago, along with Russell Brand, along with Elon Musk, along with Donald Trump, along with Joe Rogan. And I'm happy to say, I would sit there in my Periscopian days in the basement with the Periscope app, walking around, going, Red Rover, we call Joe Rogan over, and we'd call Jordan Peterson over. I was praying for these guys to come over. We need their gifts on our side to be illuminating. And man, they're all making great progress. Now, Jordan Peterson is going to hit 4 points right here. Bam, 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 bam. And I'm afraid you're going to miss it because I tested it and I played it for some friends of mine. And they said, oh, what was that? See, he's thinking so fast. I want to slow it down for you now. He's going to say, we've dealt with the problem of starvation and poverty. The problem is we've made more fat people than we've made starving people. That's not a solution. That's a clear point. He's not even trying to be funny, but people laughed. He said, we actually have the ability to feed the world. If we wanted to, there should be and could be no starvation. Second proposition by Peterson. Who would never say something like that unless you could back it up? Third point he makes, we don't have a problem with overpopulation, trying to destroy the planet. We got to cut down on the population like Bill Gates, these other knuckleheads are obsessed with. The problem is the peak is going to hit at roughly 8.5 to 9 billion people. You can actuarially predict suddenly there's going to be a precipitous decline, and the greatest problem we're going to have is how to care for an aging population in decline. When we hit 9 billion, the issue won't be overpopulation, it'll be underpopulation keeping up with our needs. The next point he makes is the planet is rapidly greening. All of these obsessed Klaus Schwab activists with their green energy deals in Washington, wasting money and wasting life. The truth of the matter is the world is rapidly greening in the semi-arid areas where you're looking at desert areas that are transitioning into green. They're suddenly expanding with plants. Why? Because the very thing you're trying to cut back on, carbon dioxide, is producing an adaptation in plant life that is causing it to proliferate in the arid areas. Bam, bam, bam. All of these psychological, memes that are being shoved down our throats that are the red meat for the radicals are actually deceptions. Now, Jordan Peterson will do it fast. Watch this.
There's way more fat poor people than starving poor people. Right. That's a hell of a fine accomplishment. And I don't mean that as a joke, right? I mean, the only starvation there is in the world now is it's for political reasons. We can easily feed the entire population and more than that. We're going to peak at about 9 billion, and the population is going to come down after that, and that's not going to be very long in the future. And the declining population is going to be the problem, not the increasing population. The planet is rapidly greening. That's a consequence of carbon dioxide production, which I think is insanely comical. It's mostly happening in semi-arid areas, which is exactly the opposite of what we've been told for the last 30 years. And the data on that are crystal clear. And it turns out that's because when plants have more carbon dioxide, they can close their breathing pores, and that means they can inhabit drier areas, and so the deserts shrink, not grow. So I'm positive about that.
The desert shrink and not grow. Wouldn't you love to hear the whole rant? I mean, Jordan is going up there, walking up and down saying, here's the reality of things. Here's the distortion. We're living under this distortionary thinking in the West, and in the name of Jesus. Got to find those oxygen masks. You put on every now and then. Inhale, Jordan Peterson, every now and then. And it clears up your brain. By the way, speaking of Red Rover, I hardly have the time to cover everything I want to cover right now. I'm going to go over. Got to go over. I can't do it for Rav, but I can do it for me. Russell Brand, the guy got baptized. What's going on with this? Well, Russell Brand's having his experience. I believe he's having, rather than being cynical, all you little, tweeters out there, they go, well, I don't hear Jesus. I think the guy's, it sounds to me like he's on a journey. I hope it doesn't end up like a Bob Dylan phenomena where it's, slow train coming album and then we lose him. Let's listen to what Russell Brand says about water baptism and having an encounter with God.
History, and it's part of my service. This is new to me and it's a joy to me. And I know that I'm not expected to be perfect, and I know that that's not something I'll be able to deliver. Those of you that have embraced me, I'm so grateful. I can't tell you how happy I feel and how relieved I feel. But as you know, if you know, my resources are coming from somewhere else and someone else now. Thank you so much for your support. Let's keep doing this together, or certainly I'm just going to do what I'm doing. I love you so much. I'm so grateful to be surrendered in Christ. See you all soon. I'm doing the show a little later. Come and watch that if you want to.
So surrendered in Christ. I was listening to this 2 minute and 8 seconds segment, and I was waiting for him to talk about Jesus, and I was kind of disappointed because he was talking about this experience he had, like in water baptism. I was thinking, well, he's having an encounter. He said it's unlike, I've had drugs and been disappointed, but this was like something profound has happened to me. And I thought, well, when you get born again or something like that, I know what happened to me. I didn't have language for it. I didn't have words for it. And I couldn't describe it effectively. But I was really happy to hear. He's married someone who's Catholic. He brought that in. He said she's made her decisions. And now, hey, I'm making my choices. And then he mentions Christ. So I think, Mercedes, there's hope that he's some serendipitous. There's a backstory here with some friends or people that got access to him that is going to be very interesting when we find it.
Yeah, I think so. Also, I'm wondering if your Red Rover mantra is just winning people to the Lord. So I think you need to be really conscious of who you name. I mean, you could be praying all sorts of stuff. Red Rover. We could ask for Kyle from Right Wing Voice to come over. I mean, my goodness, you don't know. Anybody could get saved at this.
Right Wing Voice?
Right Wing Watch.
Right Wing Watch.
Yeah.
Well, now this
You
kind
didn't
cometh
laugh.
not out but by prayer and fasting.
It was a joke, and it really landed flat. You were like you weren't going for it. So.
No. But I mean, and people don't. It's a guy that's always he's like one of two employees.
There's a lot. I'm going to lift it up here in the last 40 seconds we've got. There's a lot of people who are getting saved, radically saved. Like I've seen multiple people like on my Instagram feed, like people with OnlyFans pages, radical salvations happening right now. God's doing something, and it's so unique for it to be happening the older you get, right? For somebody like we're looking at here, you're saved in your 30s and your 40s. You lived life. You've done everything the devil's had to offer you: money, power, drugs, sex. I mean, like he's done it all. And now it's like, but Christ is real. Christ is authentic. And so it's just the hope of nations. And I think what we're seeing a lot of on the Courage Tour too.
Well, we're seeing thousands every week. We just came back from Arizona. It was powerful. We saw the same thing happen in every state we've been in, actually. This is an awakening moment. Well, that's all the time we have right now. We have to end. So remember, if you want to be part of this wild populist awakening, you want to go to thecouragetour.com. We look forward to seeing you in any of these powerful tent meetings in states we're in. See you again on the next episode. Bye-bye.
Did you enjoy this latest episode? Please remember to share it with your friends, because the more knowledge you have, the better equipped you are to navigate the world.